the past practice was to have a set of officers trained that would be equipped with gear that's limited, and we do recognize that through the special pay request for those officers. But with our history of what occurred last year of not being able to get everyone here on a certain date at a certain time, the philosophy changed on us and said we should do an overall broad stroke protection of our officers, which would mean outfitting all of them.
Well, the funding source, I wrote down creative thinking. At least you're trying to take care of your troops. And from my Army history, my folks appreciated when they got taken care of. So I like the creative thinking and the funding source, personally. One other question. Is there a storage capacity problem that this new bags of gear, whatever you call it, is going to create?
No, we discussed that prior to even thinking about bringing this forward, and we will be using our weight room, and since it has a high ceiling, we'll be putting storage shelves up above that out of the way, and that's where the gear will be stored.
How much does this stuff weigh, a bag?
Bags weigh about 45 to 50 pounds.
Okay.
Chief, is this what's in a so-called battle bag?
Yes.
Okay. I heard Mayor Glenn Johnson last week over at WSU at a luncheon talk about a number of officers that were injured in the WSU riots. I wasn't sure whether he was speaking of just Pullman WSU officers or whether that included any Moscow officers. Y'all responded to that, didn't you?
Yes.
Did y'all get an aid request for that?
Yeah, we do have mutual aid agreements with most of our regional partners here, and this is another reason why we're requesting. It might not be an incident in Moscow that we have to provide equipment for ours. It might be requests through Lewiston, WSU, and Pullman, and Whitman County. But to answer your question, yes, we were contacted by Pullman PD in reference to the riots as they were classified back in 1999, May 3rd. The records show 18 officers responded.
From here?
From here. I talked with other officers, and they said at least 27 to 28 officers were mobilized. And we did have one officer in that be transported to a hospital that was struck by an asphalt block and struck his knee in that riot. And at this time, even though I wasn't here, I was told that this was the purpose of why we got the gear to start with. And you're looking at 98, 99 when we got the first and only set of gear that we've purchased. It's time to update those and get equipment that will meet the flexible fitting and also at the time incorporate more protection.
Yeah, during the break, I'd asked whether size of the human that is being fitted makes a difference, and it does. There are apparently 4 sizes of this gear.
Yeah, within the chest and the legs and arms, you do go from small to extra large.
And the price doesn't matter whether it's an extra large or a small, it's still the same.
Right. The mask itself, there are difference, but I think there's only 3 sizes of gas mask.
But the proposal is to buy a series of sizes so as officers come and go, as long as this stuff is still in a condition to be used or under, still good for use, you can mix and match so that it'll fit the variety of people that we have come through the department, I presume.
Our purpose right now would be to outfit each current officer with the correct gear. Piecemeal later, as we have done in the past, but if we get one small and get a big, it won't work. So we do try to incorporate and keep the extra gear for other officers, but we can't. It depends on who replaces who.
You don't hire the same size officer for the one that just left?
Yeah, I think the question is, it's not like a ballistic vest, though, that isn't recycled among other officers.
Even the ballistic vests are specific. We do not recycle our ballistic vests to other officers permanently. We do temporarily, but it's not an OSHA-approved practice.
Shelf life? Of
Shelf
a
life.
New gear, set of gear?
For most of the old gear that we currently have, the mask shelf life is 15, the filters are 10, and then it varies on the vest, but they usually say 10 to 15 years.
Wayne?
How often do we receive refunds and reimbursements?
Well, it depends throughout the year. It just depends on the year. If we get, for instance, we used to have travel. If someone got reimbursed for travel through an association, we used to put that in refunds and reimbursements. If we got rebates, things like that, it would go into refunds and reimbursements. Just depends on the year. It's essentially a catch-all for those revenues that are unanticipated and not in a category like state shared revenues, franchise fees, things like that. So it could vary significantly from year to year. Again, this case it's extraordinary, and as a priority, although it was, at least in my estimation, wasn't moved through the budgeting process, this opportunity presented itself, and it was a way to get the necessary equipment through a current budget year. So that's why it was proposed as it is.
How do you normally prioritize when the money is carried over in the general fund? How do you prioritize where these refunds and or reimbursements will go to?
Well, usually they're assigned to capital. We do, the council, as we advise every year, we look for recurring expenses are only budgeted with recurring revenues. So, for instance, you might have, say you had a refund and reimbursement that was $50,000. You wouldn't go out and hire someone because that refund and reimbursement revenue is only going to be there for 1 year. So you use it for one-time funding. Essentially, with fund balance carryover, that's what's done as well. Any remaining funds in those unanticipated revenues are then assigned to capital. Again, one-time revenues, for one-time expenditures. This is the same case. You're not hiring somebody. You're not buying 19 sets or 18 sets of protective gear every year. You might have to replace one or two or buy an additional one. But that initial capital expenditure is a one-time expenditure. This is a one-time funding source.
Well, all refunds and or reimbursements would be department specific.
No. This one is not department specific.
No, don't misread what I'm saying, Gary. When they're received because of a specific expense out of a specific department.
No, it could be anything like a tax refund, for instance.
Okay.
A return of a sales tax that was wrongfully applied or something like that. If it's an enterprise fund, those are given to enterprise funds. If it's general fund, no matter how it's generated, it comes in and goes into the general fund refunds and reimbursements. But it's not affiliated, Wayne, with any particular department. And again, we were very careful that this reimbursement request was to the city and not specifically to the police department.